Hello, travelers, and welcome to Go See, Do Explore.
Here, we dive deep into the heart of travel, sharing hidden gems, unforgettable experiences, and the stories that make each destination unique.
Whether you're a seasoned traveler or dreaming of your next getaway, you're in the right place to get inspired.
I'm Christopher.
And I'm Ashleigh.
And together, we'll set the course for your next great adventure and discover the stories that make each place unforgettable.
It's time to go, see, and do more. Let's explore. Hello, everybody. We're back for another episode of Go See, Do Explore. And for as long as I think I've been doing the blog, I end the year every year with a recap of what we've been doing that year. Travels. For a while, it was about what we learned in photography. But yeah, now it's mostly where did we go? What did we do? What did we learn? And then kind of looking forward to the following year. So that's what we're going to be doing on this episode.
Yeah.
So 2024 started out in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, we were in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, we were on the west side of the island in Rincon, Puerto Rico.
Yes, I remember the fireworks.
Yes. And then on January 1st, we drove across the island, went to the ferry terminal of Ceiba, and took a ferry to vieques, where we spent 2 nights. Do you want to talk about vieques?
Yeah, and I think, have we talked about vieques on the podcast before? No, because we haven't. As I mentioned in the last episode, I've been avoiding talking about Puerto Rico because I'm intimidated to talk about it. But vieques is an island off of the main island of Puerto Rico. It's in a group of islands that have sometimes been referred to as the Spanish Virgin Islands, because there's the British Virgin Islands, there's the U.S. Virgin Islands, and then there's this other group of islands that was the Spanish group along with Puerto Rico, and then became part of Puerto Rico as Puerto Rico got its independence from Spain and became a part of the United States. So Vieques is unique in that it was for a long time mostly just a military base. People lived there, and I should say people lived there before and during its time as a military base. But one half of the island basically was for bombing practice, and then the other part of the island was like storage of weapons. There's a lot of actually very serious and very sad stories about that whole time in the history of Vieques. But in the early 2000s, the military essentially pulled out of Vieques, and now it's just this kind of unusual destination without a lot of infrastructure that you can kind of go off-roading on all these trails, and you go to these beaches that not a lot of people go to. But the main reason why we were there was for the bioluminescent bay. It's not really a bay. In fact, I try not to say bay because I think people just like the sound of bio bay, but it's like a lagoon.
Right. It's called Mosquito Bay and Vieques, and it is the brightest bioluminescent bay in the world. And our tour was a little odd. We don't need to get into that. But
it's a little like being kidnapped.
Yeah, it was kind of like being kidnapped in the dark, taken to a place with some boats, and then they kidnap you from that place and take you back. Anyway, yeah. I did write a blog post about our experience in Vieques that I can link to in the show notes. But it is, like I mentioned, it's the brightest bioluminescent bay in the world. And the year before, in 2023, we had gone to the bioluminescent bay near Fajardo, Puerto Rico. And it was okay. You had to cover your head with a tarp to really see anything. Mm-hmm. So when we went to Vieques, and your paddle touches the water, and you could it just lights up immediately, and you could see the fish lighting up, swimming underneath. It was absolutely incredible. One of the most amazing experiences in my life, and I recommend it for anybody, especially if you're planning on visiting Puerto Rico. Definitely carve out some time to go to Vieques for the Bio Bay. And then if you like beaches and you don't like other people around, Vieques is also great for that.
Yeah. Overall, I completely agree. I thought that was an incredible experience. I would love to do it again sometime. Vieques is kind of a hassle. To get there, if you shell out a little bit more money, you can actually fly there, which is maybe what I would consider doing next time. The ferry is...
Our ferry to Vieques was no big deal, but coming back was a pain, and we were late, and then we had to drop off a rental car, and we were late dropping off the rental car, and it was a whole stressor.
Yeah, but also, so we had a car that we had to park in a parking lot, and then we had to rent another car. So I had 2 simultaneous rentals, right? Like a car in a parking lot, another car. And then, I think in terms of like the food experiences and like those kind of experiences, it left a lot to be desired. There's a lot of just like expats and like I did prefer, what was not Isabela Segunda, the other city. I was trying to remember the name of the city.
Esperanza?
La Esperanza, yeah, I think that's what it is. Yes, I preferred that part. You have to drive these massive Jeeps around, and it's terrible to park them.
Oh, parking was awful in Vieques.
Yeah. So I would say it's definitely worth going, but I would think about it as I'm going there for this particular thing to do, or like whichever that thing is, whether it's the bioluminescence or whether it's the beach, and just, don't expect a lot else.
It was pretty cool. On New Year's Day, we went out to the far western beach in Vieques, and we watched the sunset.
That was cool.
And we were all by ourselves. It was just us and the hermit crabs crawling around. It was pretty cool.
That was fun. Yes.
So after Vieques, we spent a couple nights in Old San Juan, which is, we've mentioned before, one of our favorite places.
Yes.
So Old San Juan, I feel like what makes Old San Juan unique is the fact that it's like a European city in the middle of the Caribbean. It's got the 500-year-old fort and the an old walled city, and it feels like Spain in the middle of the Caribbean.
Yeah. We'll have to do a whole Puerto Rico episode.
Yes, we will. So then later in January, we had plans to go to Chicago for the Travel and Adventure show, but we were going to take Amtrak, because that's usually how we get to Chicago. We take the train, and 2 days in advance, they canceled our train because of a upcoming snowstorm, it was a bad one. I want to say Kalamazoo got something like 2 feet of snow or something like that. So we rethought our plans a little bit, and we ended up going to the Travel and Adventure show in New York City. And this is only, I guess it was the 3rd time we've been to New York. We were there we just put up a YouTube video.
Yeah, I was going to announce we have a YouTube channel now. It's been months in the making, but we have a couple videos up. It's at Go See Do Explore. You can find the video of our 30-hour trip to New York there, and at least one other one by the time you go over there.
We saw Rick Steves, the expert on all things Europe travel, and then we got to see and hear Phil Rosenthal of Somebody Feed Phil speak, and we got to meet him. And it's a cherished picture, the 3 of us.
Yes.
And then we're going to move to February, where this is kind of the start of the podcast, I think. And we spent a long weekend in Walt Disney World. And I was just telling Chris as I was making the outline for this podcast, for some reason, anytime I am rethinking this year, I always forget about this trip, which
is crazy.
It's crazy
that you forget about this, this insane trip we did.
So we had 4 days in Disney World, and there are 4 parks at Walt Disney World. So we had a day basically per park, although we got the hopper and we went from park to park. There was a lot of stuff that was, maybe not a lot, but there were a few things that were new to us, which were pretty cool. The most notable being Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. That was amazing.
That was fun.
And probably one of my favorite Disney attractions. Was anything else new to us?
Tron.
Oh, yes. And the Tron coaster at the Magic Kingdom. Those were the 2 new things to us. Unfortunately, we were too early for the opening of Tiana's Bayou Adventure. Yeah. Rest in peace, Splash Mountain. And we got to see the Festival of the Arts, which was a new experience for us. And we also got to walk around in the rain for 2 days straight.
Oh, my gosh. So we filmed that, and I think I've edited about 3/4 of it. And then this summer, I just had to shelve it. I was just I can't watch us in the rain anymore. So it'll come out. That video will come out eventually, and you'll see just how wet we got.
Oh, and how miserable.
It was ridiculous.
At the end of the 2nd day, we had plans to go back to the Magic Kingdom to watch Happily Ever After again. And we're both just no.
Yeah.
Oh, that is true. We did see the new Epcot fireworks. I forget what it's called, but
I don't know that my shoes will ever be right. Maybe that's why you don't remember this trip. Maybe you blocked it out. Even though I think we did have fun.
We had a lot of fun, but in some ways it was miserable.
Yeah, because it was like cold rain
Yeah,
too. It wasn't just like warm tropical rain.
No.
It was 50 degrees and dumping.
Yeah. And at the time I didn't even really have quick drying pants. I mean, I did, since then I did buy a pair of quick drying hiking pants and I'm wearing them right now, but it's not, actively raining.
No.
And we didn't have neither one of us had shoes that were waterproof. We were not dressed appropriately for the weather. You had a raincoat, but it didn't have a hood, and then we had to buy an umbrella.
Yeah.
I really do think I might be like subconsciously blocking it out. It was fun.
We were trying to pack light because we were flying Frontier. Yeah.
It wasn't the warm Florida escape I was looking forward to.
Mm-hmm.
But anywho, the next trip was more, I don't want to say that wasn't enjoyable, but
it was I don't know, like it was good.
Yeah. It was fun. It was very expensive, as you said.
It was not relaxing. I actually didn't say it yet I'm sure that was like per day our most expensive trip of the year.
Which is insane because of the Italy trip that we have recapped in detail.
Yeah. I mean, that trip was probably more expensive overall. Italy was.
Because it was like
it was
3
weeks long with international flights and all that. But yeah.
So after Disney World, we took another kind of epic, I don't know if I would say once in a lifetime trip, but
we're going to do it again, but it was fun.
So we took the Amtrak's California Zephyr from Chicago all the way to Emeryville, which is just on the other side of the bay from San Francisco. And that was a trip that you've been wanting to do for a while. And we have a whole podcast on this one, but it was a blast. I think my big takeaway was that I wasn't really ever bored on the train either. You can watch out the window. It's really interesting. And yeah. And then we finished, of course, you have some notes there about California too, which was nice. Yeah. Well, I should mention too that for us, this trip was several new states. I'm still on the fence about whether we should count Utah, but we went to Colorado, Utah, and Nevada. Utah, we briefly saw and then proceeded to fall asleep.
Yep.
But we did sleep in Colorado on the way home. So we did, we meet that criteria. We walked around Denver.
Yeah.
And then in Nevada, we got out a few times, so we never really left the train ditch.
There's not really in Reno. There's not really anywhere to go,
right?
Or in Winnemucca, or in Elko. We got out a bunch of times though.
But once we arrived in California, we had a few days in San Francisco, which was our second time in San Francisco, but we had longer than we did the first time, so we got to see some different sites.
We did a lot of the stereotypical San Francisco stuff. I think we covered this on a podcast episode as well too. But we did a lot of the stereotypical stuff in San Francisco this time, like all the things that people think of when they think of San Francisco.
Yeah, we went to the aquarium of the bay. We did a boat tour that went under the bridge.
The trolley. We did the trolley.
Yeah.
We hung out at Fisherman's Wharf.
Yeah.
We didn't eat cioppino because it's like $35 for a bowl. But we had some other good seafood.
We had some clam chowder. And then we took a day trip to Sonoma, and we did pop over to Napa too. But in the morning, which I don't know if we ever talked about this on the podcast, in the morning we stopped at Muir Woods, which is a national monument that's not far from San Francisco, and it's on the way to Sonoma. So Muir Woods requires a timed entry to visit because of the people that are coming from San Francisco, because it's so close to the city. We got the earliest time that they had, but then we got stuck in San Francisco traffic, and I was panicking that we wouldn't make it, and we literally got there the last minute of our timed entry. Now, if we showed up 5 minutes late, I'm going to assume they would still let you in, but on the ticket, it's like, do not arrive after your time.
You were not assuming that when we were driving.
No, I was kind of freaking out.
Yeah.
But it was beautiful. Muir Woods
it's really cool.
Phenomenal.
It's one of those places, I don't even know how to say this. This is a place that you see photos of and videos, or maybe not videos anymore. Thanks, National Park Service. But you see, and it seems so unusual. And when you're there, that's how it looks too. I guess it seems like it's out of a movie or something.
Right. Just lots and lots of very tall trees. We've never been to, the Redwoods or to Yosemite, but it's it's a more accessible version of that, I feel like. If you're in Northern California and you don't have a ton of time, you could probably make time for Muir Woods. I think we spent maybe an hour and a half walking the trails.
It's just like a loop. There might be more trails, but the main trail is just kind of a loop that you walk. It's not that far.
Right. But that was pretty cool.
And then we went to Sonoma.
Yeah, we went to Sonoma and we had lunch at a Portuguese restaurant.
Yeah, I was thinking about that Alentejo pork and clams. That's a good thing.
Because ever since we've been to Portugal, we've been kind of chasing the Portuguese food, and it's just not something that is around us. There's no Portuguese restaurants in Michigan that I know of.
Nope.
But yeah, and we went back to Gunlag Bunshu, which we talked about on our favorite winery episode that we did. And we also went to Trefethen. Was that the winery?
Yeah, and then we went to... Was it just those two?
I think it was just those two.
Yeah. We spied on the French Laundry because we just had some extra time. So
sit in the parking lot.
We got some coffee and we drove around.
Yeah, and after that trip, we had a few months off. We didn't go really anywhere. So then in June, we took probably one of the most insane trips we've ever taken, if not the most insane trip.
Which has been thoroughly covered on the podcast.
Yeah,
like we have like a whole bunch of episodes.
Oh yeah, we won't detail it in detail. But I will just kind of do a quick rundown of where we went. So we started in New York City. We flew North Atlantic to Paris, and we had about 12 hours in Paris, 24 hours in Paris.
Oh, it's hard to remember the number of hours because of the time zone situation. Right. It's probably about
18 hours.
Yeah, not quite 24.
And so we got to see the sights.
We really did a lot for not even being there a whole day.
We saw the sights of Paris. I was actually just telling somebody at work about this, that we did 35,000 steps, just walked from one end of the city to the other. Yep. We didn't go in anything, but we saw it all.
Yeah. We went in the Eiffel Tower area. It's just a lot of that stuff was closed for the Olympics.
And we went into the Arc de Triomphe.
We did do that. Yeah. Saw some sort of a ceremony that I still don't know what it was.
From Paris, we flew to Catania, Sicily, where we spent a week kind of exploring that part of Sicily. Then we took the night train from Catania to Naples, where we explored that crazy, hectic, awesome food city.
Yeah. I loved the night train, but that was the least comfortable bed I've ever slept on. And I've slept on the ground. That was worse. But overall, really fun. Yeah.
We learned how to make pizza in Naples. We went to Pompeii. And then we kept going on the train to Florence, where we saw all the iconic art of Florence, saw the David, saw the Uffizi.
Yeah. Saw my bank account balance just drop and drop and drop in Florence.
Yeah, it was an expensive city.
Wine windows. The wine windows.
Wine windows. Yeah. We took a day trip to Tuscany, which was a lot of fun. And then we had what I think is probably, looking back, probably our favorite part of that Italy trip, and that was our little weekend in Bologna.
Yeah, it's hard to say definitively that was a favorite, but it was definitely a highlight. I really loved Bologna. I expected to love Bologna, so it wasn't a surprise.
Right.
Once we learned about it, I'm like, oh, I'm going to love this place. I also really loved Sicily. We don't need to, but I also really enjoyed being in Sicily. I think you mostly slept.
I did sleep a little. Get up for a few hours, sleep.
Yeah.
Then we went to Venice, which, to say, I don't know how I feel about Venice.
I loved our little section of the city we stayed in.
Yes, and the city is so beautiful, but then there was just so many people and not a ton of sights to see.
Yeah, I still remember the first time I walked past St. Mark's Square, kind of from the direction we were walking, into the area kind of west of St. Mark's Square. I was like, oh, this is just a big shopping mall. And that was really disappointing.
Yeah.
From that point on, I preferred to just kind of stay east of St. Mark's Square, where we were on I forget the name of that area we were in, but it was the very eastern edge of Venice. And it was quiet. And we found one restaurant that was really good.
Yeah, the food in Venice was a little disappointing.
Yeah.
I feel like I would have regretted if we didn't go to Venice. And
definitely.
That's kind of... And I would probably go there again, in the right circumstances.
Under the right circumstances.
I would definitely stay in that area that we stayed.
So somewhere that's just out of the way, though, whether it's that or another one of the kind of the edge.
You could stay at one of those outlying islands.
That would be cool.
I'd like to go back and see Burano.
Yeah.
And then we flew back to Paris, but we never left the airport.
Yeah. We flew to the other airport, too. We flew through Orly.
Oh, yeah, we flew to Orly on the way back. And then we flew from Paris to Newark on French B, where we were upgraded to lie flat business seats, which was amazing.
It was really good. I slept really well.
I've never slept that well on a plane. I understand why people pay a lot of money for that. It was great.
Yeah, we didn't pay. It wasn't horrible what we paid. Like, I think I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was, I would say, probably pretty comparable to like a coach seat on Delta on that route. Like, I think it was to Newark. So we had another, couple $100 to get home from there. So maybe it was a little bit more than flying like something direct from Metro and coach, but it was, for what we got, I'd say pretty good.
And it seemed like, I don't know if it was just the hotel we stayed at in Newark or if, the airport area of Newark. It seemed like we were in like little Portugal, and I really want to go back and explore that. It's a lot of Portuguese flags as we were driving to the airport.
Definitely.
Yeah, I have questions.
Yeah.
So after that trip, it was much calmer towards the end of the year.
We had to recover financially. Between that and like it seemed like everything in our house broke this year.
That is true.
So we had to lay low for a bit.
Could have a separate episode of appliances we've replaced in 2024.
Yeah.
But we did take, was it a middle of the week trip to Traverse City?
It was a middle of the week trip because the concert was like on Wednesday or Thursday night.
Yeah, so we went to Traverse City I think we stayed 2 nights to see a band that back in July I would have told you we went there to see Chris's favorite band, but I have to say I have grown to appreciate them quite a bit, and that is Lake Street Dive.
Yes, this is a good band.
You should look them up. They're nominated for a Grammy.
Yeah, and they were Emmy nominated for the theme to Somebody film.
But yeah, Traverse City is always fun, and good food.
Yeah, we went.
Good wine.
We managed to go to 2 wineries. Did we get 2 wineries in, or just one?
Maybe just CGT. I don't know.
I think maybe just one. But yeah, that was really fun. The concert too was at Interlaken, which is a fine arts camp near Traverse City. But they have, an outdoor concert venue. And that was a really nice place to see a concert. I would definitely be interested in seeing more concerts there. I think we maybe talked about that too. But
I don't know if we did.
No? Mm-mm. Maybe just in our regular lives we talked about it. But yeah, quick trip to Traverse City.
And it was good because, I don't know, I'm always, Bubby's Bagels in Traverse City. 2 thumbs up.
Yeah.
I think we still have some in the freezer.
Dinner tonight?
All right, I think it's time for a wine break.
Let's go to the wine break. We're here for the wine break, and as we sit by the metaphorical fire, crackle, at this holiday time, and remember our trips of the year, I decided to make some mulled wine. So that's what we have: mulled wine, or glog, or glühwein, or I think it has a couple other names too. Vino caliente in Spanish, hot wine. That's what we're having. We're having it out of our little mugs that we got at the Grand Rapids Christmas market, so they look like boots. So my recipe for mulled wine is really pretty simple, but I think pretty effective. I take red wine, and I'll talk more about the wine in a moment. Take a bottle of red wine. I put about 2 tablespoons of mulling spices in there. I buy mulling spices from the Spice House in Chicago. Not a sponsor. We don't have sponsors. We would love sponsors. But
if you're listening to the Spice
House, send me some mulled spices. So the mulling spices from the Spice House. I really like the Spice House because they have these flat packs that they ship first class mail, and so then they don't charge you shipping. So they have these really high-end spices, and it's not super expensive. And so I just put like 2 tablespoons in there, and I heat it kind of like lowish heat. You want to see steam, but you don't want it to be boiling, for 15 minutes or so, and then strain it. That's all I do. Now this is a little special because I also added a little bit of Courvoisier. This is the thing you do with mulled wine sometimes, is add a little bit of brandy in there or something, just to kind of like boost the alcohol just a little bit, because you lose it when you're heating it, right? So I don't always do that, but I did it this time because it's special for the podcast. I also thought about putting we have some clementines. I thought about putting some clementines in here, but they were a little moldy, so I opted out of that. The wine we have here is Rolla Red from Two Lads. That's a classic wine that we use to mull because we went there one time and they had it, and so now it's like that's the one to use.
Yeah. Anytime, I shouldn't say anytime, but we've gone to a few restaurants that have had a mulled wine, and I've gotten it, and I'm like, it's not as good as
So
it's not good as our home mulled wine.
So the thing about this is that if you look up recipes online for mulled wine, I feel like they almost always tell you to use something big and tannic. And I think they do that because you're kind of diluting it. You're evaporating some of the alcohol. Maybe you're putting some fruit juice in there or something that's going to dilute it. A lot of times you add sugar. We'll talk about that in a second too. But I have found that lighter, less tannic wines, I just think are better for this. And Roll is kind of in the middle. Roll is not super light. It's not like a Pinot Noir, but it's I think, kind of the perfect wine for it. I also have just used like really cheap red wine and it's been fine. You know, some people add sugar just to kind of balance it a little bit. I usually don't. As I'm tasting this, I'm like, oh, maybe a tablespoon of sugar would have been nice. I don't know. But you think it's fine?
Yeah.
Doesn't need any
I'm not
sweetness.
really a add sugar to things person. Like, don't
No,
get your sugar away from my spaghetti sauce.
Well, and I wouldn't add so much that it's sweet. I just think it's a little bit, well, you tend to like beverages that are acidic. I think it's a little bit acidic for me. I would maybe add just a touch to balance it, but in any case, it's really easy to make. It's really easy to drink, and it's nice this time of year. So I'd recommend making some mulled wine at home.
I can put the link to the Spice House mulling spice in the show notes.
Cool. Good wine break.
All right, so we're back to recapping our travels of the year. After Traverse City, we took our first of only 2 camping trips this year. This is pretty disappointing. We don't need to get into the details of it. But
I might actually talk about it a little bit.
Okay.
But you first talk about the camping.
Okay, so in 2024 and continuing into 2025, Michigan state parks were doing a lot of renovations. They have some COVID money that they're using for these renovations, so it has to be used by the end of 2025 or they lose it. So what that means is, I want to say it's like 25% of the parks are closed at a time. And being that Michigan state parks are already hard to get camping reservations at, if you're trying to get a last minute camping reservation, it can be downright impossible. So this year we went to, what's the name of that park in Muskegon?
Pioneer County Park.
So because of some car issues we were having, we had already had to cancel, I want to say, 2 camping trips by this point. So we ended up being able to find a spot at a county park, Pioneer County Park in Muskegon County, which is on the west side of the state. It was right on Lake Michigan. Honestly, it felt very much like a Michigan State Park campground. The one difference is that we had water at our site.
Yeah.
And there was absolutely no cell signal.
Leaking water.
Oh, yeah. That was great.
Yeah.
I'm sure, well, it's probably a well.
This park is essentially adjacent to Muskegon State Park. It felt just like Muskegon State Park in terms of the look and feel of it.
So it wasn't my favorite place that we've ever camped, but it was, you know, for a last minute way to finally get out and get in the camper. It did its job.
We got to kayak at Duck Lake, although I forgot the skag.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of wobbly.
It was a little wobbly. Then hard to maneuver, but yeah.
So we mostly had fun. That was when you fell out.
I'm always a little awkward getting out of the kayak as it is. And this time when we were at Duck Lake, my foot got stuck and I just face planted in the water.
The seats have these straps. By the way, if you want to see our kayak, our second video on YouTube, Pretty Lake's Quiet Area, it features pretty heavily. But yeah, there's some straps in the seat and you can kind of hook your foot on it if you're not careful and then face plant in the water.
Face plant in the water. Luckily, it was a nice sandy beach.
And the water
rocky,
the water was warm.
Yes.
It was all good. Yeah.
So our next little trip was just a one-night getaway, which we talked about on the podcast. We went to Ludington. It's kind of our last getaway before I had to go back to work. And Ludington is one of our favorite places in Michigan. And it's been a while. It's been a few years since we had been back there. I believe the campground at Ludington State Park and most of Ludington State Park is still closed. I believe the 4th of July, everything should be back open there. But, you know, there's a gorgeous lighthouse and then we did something we had never done before, which we went south from Ludington to Silver Lake. To Silver Lake Sand Dunes. And I know we talked about it on the podcast, but we did the Macwoods dune rides through the Silver Lake Sand Dunes, which was a lot of fun.
That was really fun. I wasn't expecting to not like it, but I kind of thought, oh, we're going to, you know, ride around on the sand for a while. It'll be fine. But actually, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I would do it again. Maybe we'll go back when the park is open again at Ludington and we can. And kind of, well, no, it's not our last big trip of the year. But then we had our annual Labor Day camping trip in St. Ignace at Strait State Park. And we also talked about this on the podcast, but we stayed at Strait State Park. We did a paddling trip at Pretty Lake's Quiet Area. As Chris mentioned, there is a video of that on YouTube that you can watch. That's pretty cool.
A really beautiful video.
What else did we do?
We went to Lake Zinn.
Oh, yeah, we went south of the bridge.
There will be a video on that, too. We have a bunch of videos from that weekend that will be coming forth.
Yeah, we did a little... and we went to the Thunder Bay Winery. Yeah.
Yeah, it was good.
And, of course, we went to Mackinac Island, and first we crossed the Mackinac Bridge on Labor Day, which is one of our little traditions. And then we hung out on the island for a few hours. We drove our own horse.
Yes.
And then the next trip was back to Mackinac Island. Is that right?
That's right.
That's right. And I know we talked about it on the podcast, so I don't want to talk about it for too long. But I've been wanting to do fall on Mackinac Island for a long time. And once again, it was just a one-night getaway. But sometimes, honestly, that's all you need. A little change of scenery. You can save, half the money if you only go for one night over two for a weekend. And you're not losing out on that much time. If you were going to leave Friday night and then spend the night somewhere, then you're there Saturday morning. But if you just leave Saturday morning and it's not too far of a drive, you're cutting your lodging costs in half. Budget tip.
Yeah, and we got there. We can get to Mackinac pretty quick. I think it was 3.5 hours only in the car.
And we tried some new restaurants, and we biked around the island, which we hadn't done in a few years. And yeah, it was really good to see Mackinac Island in a different season.
Normally we're there on Labor Day when it's pretty busy. Yeah, I would say there were a fair number of people, but
the island was starting to close down for the season, and it got very cold at night. I was very glad I had my coat.
Yeah.
And then later in November, we took a long weekend to Greenville, South Carolina, which was
a very recent podcast episode.
And probably our last quote unquote big trip of the year. I mean, it was a long weekend. It wasn't a huge trip, but
there were hotels and flights and stuff involved.
Yeah. And we got to, experience fall for Greenville. It was a lot of fun. I would definitely like to see Greenville at a time that it wasn't at max capacity.
I know, it's really funny. It was really funny because we booked this, of course, having no idea that was going to happen. And so I was all excited for Ashleigh to see Greenville because that was my second time there. And then it was really fun, but okay, that's different than what I thought it was going to be.
The music was fun and the food was fun. But yeah, I would like to see, on a regular day in Greenville.
Yeah.
Now, our last little trip is one we didn't talk about. Once again, it was just a one night. The Friday after Thanksgiving, we went to Grand Rapids and we just spent one night in the city and we got to do some of our favorite things. And that is where we got our Grand Rapids Christmas mug that we are drinking our mulled wine out of. We got to go to some of our favorite restaurants. Probably the most important for Chris is that we went to the tiki bar.
Yeah. That is the most important.
He doesn't care what food we eat as long as he gets his fill of tiki drinks.
And there just aren't that many places that do that.
No.
Yeah. My new favorite is a corn and oil, which has neither corn nor oil. It was really good.
We also took a few day trips this year. We went to Holland, Michigan in the spring to see the tulips. My mom had never been to Holland. Well, no, she had been to Holland for a wedding, but she'd never been at the tulip time. It was the weekend before tulip time. That's kind of my little hack. Not that going during tulip festival is bad. Some people like the crowds. They like the festival environment. But the thing with tulip festival is if you don't go towards the beginning, the flowers get trampled. And so if you want to actually see the beautiful fields of flowers, you either need to go right at the beginning of tulip festival, or my tip is go the weekend before. So
yeah.
And we also drove over to Saugatuck and we went to one of our favorite restaurants, the Southerner.
Yeah. Some fried chicken.
I'm trying to remember. It was kind of the weather was not great that day.
No.
It was a little misty.
Yeah.
This year we also took 3 different day trips to Detroit. In January, we went for the Mowtown Museum, which we talked about the Mowtown Museum during our Michigan bucket list episode. So more information on that can be found there, or I can also link to the blog where I just talked about the Mowtown Museum, the blog post. We went in the summer. We went for the grand opening of Michigan Central Station, which is amazing. They are now, I believe, you can only do a tour of the station through an official tour that you have to pay for. But I did read something the other day about restaurants opening in Michigan Central Station. So I wonder if if there will be parts of it that'll be open to the public.
I wonder if in that old, in the old restaurant, if that's where the restaurant's going to be.
I feel like it was the one I saw was a coffee shop. So I don't know. And then we did a paddling trip through Belle Isle, which is the city park in the middle of the Detroit River. It was a very interesting experience. It was one of those things that I've been wanting to do for a really long time, and we finally did it, and it was a little disappointing. I had kind of imagined that you would be like paddling behind and I mean, you paddle behind the conservatory, you paddle behind the bell tower. We did go under the graffiti bridge, which was kind of cool, but then it was like, I don't know, it felt like we were in areas we weren't supposed to be.
Yeah,
I was kind of worried we were going to puncture the kayaks a few times.
The canal goes through kind of this middle part of the island that is not really developed. And then there's some abandoned stuff like the zoo, for example.
Yeah, that was kind of creepy. I was kind of worried there was going to be like barbed wire poking my inflatable kayak. And I was going to be stranded in an abandoned zoo. Yeah. There was one building that, was it?
It was like a lumber mill.
Yeah, it was the old lumber mill from when they built all of the buildings on Belle Isle that has just like fallen into the river. And they put it like a fence around it, but on the land side, not on the river side. There was just like a collapsed building, and it was very odd. I don't know.
There's more work to do at Belle Isle, I guess.
Yeah, I guess when you're visiting on the road and by land, it seems like it's all done. Yeah. And it really, when you go on the water, you realize that maybe it's not.
Well, in that eastern half of the island has always been a nature preserve, right? It's not that manicured city park like the western half of the island is. So, but then also it's deteriorated.
2024, we really got into paddling.
Yeah.
If you watch our Pretty Lakes Quiet Area video, you'll see that we absolutely love our Sea Eagle kayak.
Sea Eagle, sponsor us. I want all of the inflatables.
And this year, after a failed attempt with the Oru kayaks, which we have since...
Ooh, I literally sunk in an Oru.
We have since bought our own individual kayaks that are aqua glides.
They went out of business. Or they got bought.
They got bought by Boat, BOTE, and they are discontinuing the aqua glide brand. So this summer they were offering ridiculous discounts on their inflatable kayaks. So we got two like $800 kayaks for like $150 a piece, which was really nice. I still think I prefer the Sea Eagle, but...
Oh, for sure.
It's a nice way for like when we do things like Belle Isle or rivers that our Sea Eagle just can't really handle.
Yeah, although sometimes I'm like, maybe we should have just gotten some of those single razor lights. I know.
10 times the price.
The aqua glides are like so stable though compared to the razor light, because the razor light is meant for performance, and so it's a little bit unstable. But yeah. The aqua glide you can like pretty much fall asleep in and it's fine.
Yeah, I mean you could probably stand up in it and you'd be fine.
Maybe.
Like I wouldn't try like stand up paddle boarding or anything, but I think you could. Yeah, it doesn't really seem like it's gonna flip at any point.
Yeah.
So I think looking forward to.
Before we do that, I want to spring something on you.
Okay.
So I want to ask some questions about this year, and then I will give my answers too.
Okay. All
right. What was your favorite flight this year? I think I know the answer to this, but
I mean, could it really be anything other than French v Paris to Newark? Can it be anything other than that?
I don't think it can be anything other than that. I agree. I was gonna try to pick something different too, but no, that was honestly the best one. The North Atlantic one was also very good, but like the seat was not quite as good.
No, the seat wasn't quite as good. My leg got a cramp.
Oh yeah,
I'm complaining.
It wasn't any of the Frontier flights that we took this year. We flew Frontier a little bit more this year.
Did we take Spirit at all in 2024?
Yeah, we took it to New York from Detroit.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
We flew a lot of airlines. We flew a lot of airlines this year.
Yeah.
We had our first time ever missing a connection.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about that.
We did.
And gave our advice in the Greenville episode.
Was your favorite hotel or short-term rental stay? For any criteria that you choose. It could be like the nicest one. It could have been in the best location, like whatever.
I have a couple. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
So I really liked the Airbnb in Naples.
That was good.
There was such a cool building. It was in this old building in the Spanish Quarter, right? Spanish Quarter?
Yep.
Of Naples, and it was on the first floor, which was really nice because I was thinking about where we stayed in Venice was awesome, where we stayed in Bologna was really awesome, but you had to walk up felt like you were on the stairs forever, and after walking and walking and walking all day, it was kind of a pain.
The Bologna one was kind of weird actually. The location was great. but like what it was,
that was
kind of strange.
It was like this hotel room. It was a hotel room that was like, it kind of felt like it was in like a hostel. Like there was a lot of shared space.
Yeah.
There was no cold water to be had anywhere.
Yeah.
And what was the other one? Oh, the Inn on Mackinac was really cool too. And of course, I really like the Residence Inn in Grand Rapids.
Yeah, I feel like we're kind of going in the same direction. I just picked like 4 of them. Initially, I was gonna say my favorite was the Venice Airbnb. I think the combination of just how cool it was and where it was was really, really good. I agree with the other ones you said too. I want to specifically call out that hotel we stayed at in Ludington though.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Because it was like so surprisingly good.
Right.
Like it looks on the outside, it looks like just kind of like a motel.
Right.
But it's actually really nice.
Yeah. The Summers Inn in Ludington. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the Inn in Mackinac, like they're all good. All those ones you mentioned are good too, for sure.
The Residence Inn in Grand Rapids. Both times we've stayed there, we've gotten this awesome corner room, which we checked in early this time, so the higher floors weren't available. Yeah. But it's enormous. It has like a full kitchen, and you just have this beautiful view of the city. I think I've said before that I'm much more a fan of independent hotels, but we will stay at brand names, and if that makes sense. Yeah. And that's in that specific instance, I really like that specific Residence Inn.
Yeah, for sure. I want to mention that this year we got to stay in not 1 but 2 Citizen M hotels. My favorite hotel chain that exists. We stayed in 2, 1 in Paris, 1 in San Francisco.
That is true. I caught you saying like San Francisco a little bit.
Oh, I know. It's insufferable, right? I don't do it on purpose. I promise I don't do it on purpose. It just happens. And then last question. This is maybe the hardest one. If you have to have a couple, that's okay. But just go with your gut, I would say. Your favorite travel dining experience of the year.
There was a lot of really good.
There were a lot of really good ones. And it's okay. Like if you pick one and you'd exclude another one, they're not going to be mad at you, I don't think. Like, but just try to like see if you can think of.
Oh, what's the name of that restaurant? That Italian restaurant in Chicago?
Oh, Monteverde.
Monteverde, that was really good.
Yeah, that was a good one.
I feel like it's blasphemy that I can't think of a specific dining experience in Italy.
But I think that makes sense because I don't think we had a single dining experience in Italy that was like far above many of the others, right? Like it was pretty consistently good. And then there were some in Venice that were like so not for the fault of the restaurants. It's just like
that one in that we were in that garden in
that's
in
the
Venice
one I would pick in Venice.
Amazing.
A little bit like in Florence, like every dinner in Florence we had was good, but none of them were like exceptional for a particular reason, right? They were all just really good Italian dinners. I have to think of mine too. We didn't mention our little jaunt to Windsor. I don't know if that real.
We did go to a steakhouse in Windsor.
Yeah.
For our anniversary.
Yeah.
And then we ate and then we turned around and came back.
I'm going to pick mine. This is, again, I'm just going with my gut here. There were lots of other good ones. But that late lunch we had in Sicily when that lady who didn't speak English just like brought us a bunch of food. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one I'm going with.
Yeah. When I think about our food in Italy, that is the one that stands out. It's just like incredible. We didn't speak the same language. We just said like Sicilian antipasti, right? And she just like kept like bringing meat and cheese and mushrooms and gelato, bread,
olive oil,
and that was my birthday. Yeah, that was a good birthday meal. Was good. Where we went for dinner that day was not as good.
Well, what was kind of funny is, and I feel like this happens to us sometimes. Ashleigh had picked out this dinner in Catania that looked really good, and we were excited about it. And then just like through spontaneity, we ended up having this late lunch that was not what we expected and was really big. We ended up going to the restaurant we had planned on going to and just kind of like had some snacks. But I think it worked out okay.
Yeah.
Okay, those were my questions. I thought that would be fun to get into.
All right, let's get into what we're looking forward to for 2025. For this last segment, we are going to get into kind of what we're looking forward to in the coming year.
Yes.
So we don't necessarily have to talk any details, dates, or anything like that, but just what are you hoping 2025 will have in store?
2025 is going to be the year of camping. This is my proclamation. And here's why. So in 2020, we bought this little runaway camper. I know we've talked about it on the podcast before. It's like the 6 foot by 8 foot camper. It weighs 700 pounds empty. And in 2020, we also got a Subaru Outback that is, that was our tow vehicle, I guess. We also just bought it as a regular car too. But we did a lot of camping in the fall of 2020. We did a lot of camping in 2021. And then in 2022, we had to cancel, I think, one trip because of a car issue. It's just the Subaru started to not really do such a good job. I fixed it, I repaired it, put all my money into it. And then we just had kind of a couple of big issues in 2023 with it. It was getting older. It's pretty high mileage. And so I kind of just knew, I knew last year that it was time. It was time to change cars. And since we were changing cars, and since a lot of stress in my life in the past few years has come from like the need to tow with a vehicle that I was concerned about. It's like, I want to get something that's going to handle it well. And not that there's ever going to be zero issues necessarily, but just something that was a little bit more capable. And so what I really wanted was a Ford Ranger circa 2011. Like that small pickup, right? That's what I really was after. They don't really make those. They don't make those. And so we ended up getting a Maverick. We have a Ford Maverick now that it can pull 4,000 pounds. And it's still like a small truck. It's not big. I don't want a big truck that I have to put a bunch of gas into and all that. But because of that, and because I now need to justify that expense, I want to make sure that a significant portion of what we spend on travel in the coming year, 2 years, is camping, right? So that we can offset like what we would have spent on flights for me, paying for this car. So that, plus we love camping also, and we haven't gotten to do a lot of it.
No, this year and last year we had a lot of canceled trips.
2 because of the car, 1 because of our cat.
Yes.
another major expense this year. Our little cat decided to
new car, new appliances. Yeah. An ultrasound for the 7-pound cat.
Yeah, right. So, in an emergency medicine for the 7-pound cat. But anyway, I'm really looking forward to camping. I'm really looking forward to finally going back to Watkins Glen in the Finger Lakes with our camper, something I wanted to do for a long time. I'm sure we're going to talk about what we're thinking about for summer. I've wanted to go to the Bruce Peninsula in Canada and camp for years. And it was one of the things during the pandemic that I was like, when this pandemic is over, I'm going to get this camper and I'm going to go to Canada, because we couldn't go to Canada. I'm going to go to Canada and I'm going to camp in this place I want to go. Like, it's the place I've been dreaming of since 2020. So I'm hoping for some like wish and dream fulfillment this year and via camping. And the other thing I like about camping frequently is I feel like you just get better at it, right? Mm-hmm. So like when you don't do it very often, you forget where stuff is, you forget how to do things. When you camp a lot, it all just sort of happens, and I'm wanting to get kind of back in camping shape, so to speak.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'm most excited for the possibility of this year is Mexico City.
Yes, I'm really excited about that too, of course.
I like the idea about Canada and camping, and I'm like, let's go back to Europe.
I know.
Can't give me Europe for 2 years. They're not giving me Europe.
I didn't say we couldn't go to Europe at all this year, just maybe not 3 weeks.
But probably what is most exciting to me about this possible Canada trip is Quebec and going into Montreal. Montreal has been on my list for quite some time. So to get to see that would be pretty special. I definitely have missed camping, so don't get me wrong there. Like, only 2 camping trips this past year is just sad. Like, is that right? We only went on 2 camping trips. So yeah, trying to figure out how to squeeze that in more.
Yeah. So this Canada trip is going to be really like a paddling heavy trip. We're going to try to paddle a lot. And so we haven't made firm plans. It may or may not be all of these places, but some of the places we have in mind: Killarney Provincial Park in Ontario, Algonquin Provincial Park in Ontario, and then the big one, the thing I really want to do is I want to do a weekend program at the Madawaska Canoe Center, which is not far from Algonquin, and learn how to whitewater paddle. That's like the whole trip kind of hinges around that. If it can't happen, that's okay. We'll still take the trip. But like, that's really the thing that I want to be able to do, is to learn how to run whitewater. And then, like Ashleigh said, going into Quebec from there. And then I think we're going to go to Maine too, which is another, I would talk about that on that other podcast episode too. It's another like full circle. Yes. I want to go back to Maine, having accomplished the things that I've accomplished in the past few years, like that I set out to accomplish when I was in Maine. Yeah.
And the last few times we've been in Maine, I've really wanted to kayak. So having the kayak will be nice. I think it'd be really cool to paddle around Jordan Pond.
Yeah, definitely.
And then we have, the idea to hit a couple new states of Connecticut and Rhode Island while we're out that way.
This is the state grabbing. I have a 2025 related question for you. How many boats do you think we will buy in the year 2025?
Yeah, because if we get into whitewater, it definitely requires a different kayak than we currently have. And we currently have 3 kayaks.
Yeah.
We're going to have to upgrade our camper storage space.
Yeah.
We'll just start storing them in the camper.
So I definitely don't think we can do all of this in 2025, but I'll say, so I've had my eye on whitewater capable kayaks. So either an inflatable like the Sea Eagle Explorer series or maybe hard-sided. I don't think this will be 2025, but I look at sea kayaks constantly too. Maybe that'll be the 2026 adventure, is to be able to have a sea kayak. We can always rent them too. It's just, if you really want to get good, you have to go frequently. And if you want to go frequently, then you should buy one. And then the other one is Sea Eagle. Sea Eagle, do you hear this? Let's work something out. Sea Eagle has that catamaran. Is it the Fast Cat? Yeah, it's like a 4-seater that you can put an outboard motor on. And I've been really wanting, I don't want a big expensive boat that people refer to as a money pit. You know what I mean? I don't want that. I don't want to store that. I don't want to maintain that. But I would love something that would be capable to take out on inland lakes or protected waters of the Great Lakes like Grand Traverse Bay. And that, I feel like that could happen. But I don't know if it'll be this year or not. We'll just have to see how things go.
But yeah, so that's kind of what we are looking forward to for 2025. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, it's going to be a year of camping and paddling for sure. And maybe we'll work a quick trip into Europe. Who knows?
I wouldn't complain.
Who knows what's possible?
And Callie is not going to get sick.
Oh.
We're not canceling any more trips because of a cat.
Oh, you don't even say that. Oh my gosh, we're about to leave for one.
Well, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. That's all for today's episode of Go, See, Do, Explore. Thank you for joining us and sharing in the wonder of travel.
Keep the spirit of today's adventure alive by checking out our blog at goseedoexplore.com for even more travel inspiration.
You can also get in touch with us by emailing us at podcast@goseedoexplore.com. And don't forget to rate and review us wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really helps fellow travelers find us and join our community.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep dreaming, and keep traveling by any means necessary.
I'm Christopher.
And I'm Ashleigh, bidding you farewell and happy exploring.